we think of when we think of water? Perhaps we think of a stream flowing through fields and woods on a sunny autumn day, or waves breaking endlessly one after another onto a sandy beach. We might think of some of the thousands of different kinds of animals for whom the world's oceans, rivers, and lakes are home. We might think also of ourselves and how we use water, maybe to enjoy a cooling swim on a hot August day, or to paddle a canoe down a river. We might think of how water quenches our thirst and how we need water to stay alive. We appreciate and depend on water for many different reasons.
But when we think of water, other kinds of images may also come to mind. Images of polluted streams and lakes, of beaches covered in trash and other debris that has washed ashore, of wildlife made sick or killed by poisonous chemicals dumped in our oceans. We may think also of how people use water carelessly or wastefully, and how we don't always have enough. This program is about water, why we need it, how it is threatened, and what we need to do to protect it.
From space, the most prominent feature of the Earth is not its continents, but its oceans. We sometimes call the Earth the blue planet because over 70% of its surface is covered by oceans. These oceans are home to thousands of different species of animals. There are whales whose immense size we see only briefly when they break the surface for air, and tiny seahorses only inches long. Life in our oceans has many sizes and many shapes. And there are still other animals that live along ocean shores and depend on the oceans for food and survival.
But sometimes the survival of animals that live in or depend on the Earth's oceans is threatened by the actions of humans. In 1989, the supertanker Exxon Valdez struck a reef that tore a gash in the side of its hull. Over 11 million gallons of oil spilled out, creating a blanket of oil that extended for miles. As it washed ashore, this oil coated the beaches of Alaska's Prince William Sound. It also coated the bodies of thousands of animals. Among the victims were birds whose oil-soaked feathers made it impossible for them to fly or search for food. The Exxon Valdez oil spill was a dramatic example of ocean pollution. Pollution is a word we hear often today. It means adding things to our environment that harm it, that make it unsafe or unclean.
We don't need to go to Alaska to see the effects of pollution on the Earth's oceans. The garbage and other wastes that wash ashore many of the world's beaches provide ample evidence that our oceans are far from clean. Bottles, cans, different kinds of plastic. These are only a few signs of the trash that pollutes our oceans. And trash isn't just showing up on beaches where people live. Trash is also showing up on beaches in faraway places where nobody lives. Where does this trash and garbage come from? Some comes from freighters and other large ships that dump millions of pounds of metal, plastic, and glass into the ocean every day. Some comes from people who throw their cans, plastic cups, and other trash from their sailboats or motorboats. Some comes from cities that haul their garbage and sewage out to sea, using the ocean as a convenient and inexpensive dumping place. Even things thrown away on land often reach the oceans. A plastic six-pack holder, for instance, can wash down a storm sewer. This sewer might empty into a river that flows to the ocean. In one way or another, hundreds of millions of tons of trash finds its way to our oceans. This trash is not only ugly, it can be dangerous. This is particularly true of plastic. This photograph shows a sea lion entangled in a discarded piece of plastic net. Every year, thousands of animals get tangled in plastic nets and six-pack holders and choke. Sea turtles can choke on plastic garbage bags that they've mistaken for their favorite food, jellyfish.
Trash is a serious form of water pollution. But water can be polluted by other things that are even more dangerous. Every year, factories pour trillions of gallons of waste directly into the oceans. Some of this waste contains chemicals that are poisonous or toxic. Other toxic chemicals reach the oceans from places that are hundreds of miles away. Farms are an example. Farmers often spray their crops with chemical pesticides to kill insects. But these pesticides can wash into streams and rivers, which eventually empty into our oceans. Ordinary families also contribute to this kind of pollution. What we wash down the sink or flush down the toilet may end up in the oceans. Even water that looks clean may in fact contain chemicals that are harmful.
Here's an experiment to show how water that looks clean can still be polluted. Get 6 clear cups and label them with numbers. Fill the first cup with clear water. And then add a drop or two of food coloring. Imagine that the food coloring is a harmful chemical. Now pour half of the water from cup 1 into cup 2. And then add clear water until the cup is full. Note the color of the water. Then pour half the water from cup 2 into cup 3 and add clear water again. Repeat this process with the other cups, each time noting how the color of the water changes. After you've finished, look at the last cup. The water in cup 6 may look colorless, but in fact, it still contains small amounts of food coloring.
In a similar way, water that looks clean may actually contain small amounts of chemicals and other harmful things. For this reason, you shouldn't drink water from a stream, lake, or pond, no matter how clean it looks. And even though we don't drink ocean water, chemical pollution can end up hurting us in other ways. For example, an important source of food for people all over the world is fish that are caught in the oceans. But harmful chemicals can build up in the flesh of fish, or in shellfish, such as shrimp and crabs. When people eat contaminated fish or shellfish, the chemicals in them can cause many kinds of health problems, including nerve damage. There are other reasons why ocean pollution should concern us. Every year, millions of Americans spend time at the beach, surfing, swimming, or just playing in the waves. But water that is polluted is unsafe to be in. Because of pollution, many beaches have to be closed to swimming and surfing.
97% of the Earth's water is salt water contained in the oceans. The other 3% is fresh water, water that contains no salt. But even though fresh water is only a small fraction of our planet's water, pollution of fresh water may have even more serious consequences than pollution of our oceans. It is fresh water that we use to drink, to cook with, to shower and bathe in. Farmers use fresh water to irrigate crops that provide us with food. And many industries use fresh water in the process of making things. Often, we take fresh water for granted. A seemingly unlimited supply flows from our faucets. But where does this water come from?
Some of our supply of fresh water comes from surface water. Surface water can be found in streams and rivers, in ponds and lakes. and in reservoirs where water is collected and stored behind dams. Like the oceans, surface water provides us a source of recreation and opportunities to enjoy the natural beauty of our environment. Surface water is also the habitat for many species of animals. It is an essential part of the intricate web of life on our planet. But the Earth's surface water is subject to many of the same kinds of problems that afflict its oceans. Chemicals from factories, farms, and homes pollute streams, rivers, and lakes. Litter and garbage wash up along their shores. Some of the Earth's lakes and rivers are biologically dead. That means that nothing can live in them. No one bothers to fish in such waters. Swimming in water like this can lead to disease, and drinking it is unthinkable.
But even water that looks pure and clean can have problems. High in the Adirondack Mountains in upstate New York are some of America's most beautiful lakes. Far from any factories and major cities, these lakes would seem safe from the usual sources of pollution. But much of the water of the Adirondacks suffers from another kind of pollution: acid rain. Acid rain looks no different than ordinary rain, but it contains unusually high amounts of acid. The problem with acid rain begins in the smokestacks of factories and power plants that may be hundreds of miles away. Smoke from these stacks contains harmful chemicals that combine with water vapor in the sky. Carried in clouds by the wind, these chemicals travel many miles before returning to the ground in rain or snow. When this rain falls in lakes, it increases the amount of acid in the water, making it unfit for many kinds of fish. Acid rain can also kill certain kinds of plant life.
All over the world, acid rain has become a serious threat to surface water. However, our biggest source of fresh water lies not in the surface water of lakes and streams, but where we can't see it: underground, in water called groundwater. Groundwater is water from rain or snow that seeps into the earth through cracks and tiny holes. Groundwater can accumulate in aquifers, large underground bodies of water trapped between layers of rock or clay. Often, wells can reach this water. In fact, over half the drinking water in the United States comes from aquifers. But just because they're underground doesn't mean that aquifers escape the problems of pollution. One source of groundwater pollution is chemicals that are stored in toxic waste sites. These chemicals can leak from their containers and make their way down through the soil and rock to pollute the water underneath. Once groundwater is polluted, it may be hundreds of years before it becomes clean enough to drink or use. Many of the things that pollute surface water can also harm groundwater. One example is garbage. Much of the garbage we throw away is taken to sanitary landfills. Such landfills are designed to prevent chemicals in the garbage from leaking out. But even with precautions, chemicals can still leak out and pollute nearby surface and groundwater.
There's another problem with the water we get from aquifers. We often use it up faster than it's being replaced. For example, in many places there is not enough rain or surface water to grow crops. So farms pump water from the aquifers that lie below them. The Ogallala Aquifer that lies under parts of Texas, Kansas, Nebraska, and other states is a case in point. At one time, the supply of water in the Ogallala Aquifer seemed like it could never run out. But farmers have been using more water than is being replaced by rain and snow. There is now a threat that parts of the aquifer will be pumped dry.
But it isn't only on the farm that using too much water is a problem. Most Americans never stop to think that we have limited supplies of fresh water. We swim in large pools of it. We use it to make our lawns green and to flush our toilets. On average, each American uses over 100 gallons of water a day. Even in places where there is very little water, there is enormous waste. Parts of Arizona, New Mexico, and Southern California, and other areas of the Southwest, are dry desert. And yet out of this desert have risen large communities complete with lawns, golf courses, and swimming pools, all made possible by water piped in from hundreds of miles away.
This is the source of much of the Southwest's water, the Colorado River. As it flows through the Grand Canyon, its fast-flowing waters seem abundant. But as it makes its way to the Gulf of California, a vast network of dams blocks the Colorado and diverts its water to farms, cities, and towns that would otherwise be dry. In one way or another, almost all the water in the Colorado is being used, raising fears that there won't be enough in the future.
The problems of water pollution and water shortage have led people to realize that water is a resource that needs to be conserved and protected from harm. There are many things that society and our local, state, and national governments can do. They can make it illegal to dump toxic or poisonous wastes in places where they can leak into groundwater. They can punish industries that dump poisonous chemicals and other things into our rivers and oceans. Farmers can be encouraged to reduce or eliminate their use of pesticides. Towns and cities can build sewage treatment plants that purify sewage and make water clean again before it is released into our waterways. In some places, such steps have already been taken, and the results give cause for hope. Some rivers are much cleaner now than they were 25 years ago. Some cities, like New York, are making it illegal to dump garbage at sea. Different nations are also beginning to ban ships from dumping plastic, giving hope that we'll see less litter washed ashore. But despite such efforts, much more needs to be done.
And there are many things that you, your families, and friends can do to help. One thing is to clean up pollution that already exists. For example, students in some schools have adopted a stream to help make it clean again. At least once a year, they patrol the stream, picking up trash and debris. Other students are doing the same thing at beaches by cleaning up trash that has washed ashore and litter left by careless or thoughtless beachgoers.
It is also important not to do some things, like wash harmful substances down a drain. Many of the things washed down a drain eventually reach our oceans, lakes, or rivers. Even something spilled or poured on the ground can affect our water. A gallon of paint, for example, can seep into the ground and pollute thousands of gallons of groundwater.
We've seen how pollution is not the only problem with water. Fresh water is a limited resource. It shouldn't be wasted. But there are many ways to save or conserve water. One thing is to be a water detective. Look for leaky faucets. A dripping faucet may not seem like much of a problem, but over time that drip can waste a lot of water. To see how, put a coffee can under a leaky faucet and see how long it takes to fill up. A small leak can fill a coffee can in only a few minutes. In the course of a day, that might add up to 20 gallons that could be saved by fixing the leak.
There are lots of ways to use less water. How many times on a hot day do you leave the water running to get cold enough to drink? To get that one glass of cold water, another 3 gallons of water went down the drain. A better way is to leave a bottle of water in the refrigerator. That way you can get the cold water you want right away without wasting a lot of water.
Every time you use water, there are opportunities to save it. When you brush your teeth, for example, just wet your brush and turn the faucet off. By not running water the whole time, you can save 5 gallons.
Here's what may be the biggest waster of water in the house: the toilet. Every time you flush the toilet, you use 5 to 7 gallons of fresh water that started out as pure as the water we drink. Before being used to flush, this water is collected in a tank behind the toilet. Every time you flush, this tank has to fill up again. One thing you can do is put a plastic jug full of water in the tank. This takes up room in the tank so that less water is needed to fill it. And every time you flush, you save half a gallon to a gallon of water.
Every drop of water saved is important. We need all the fresh water we have. In this program, we've seen how water is a source of life. We could not live without water. We've seen that water is vital not only to our own survival, but to the survival of all living things.
Each of us has a responsibility to protect the Earth's water. Each of us can play a part in preventing pollution of the surface water of the Earth's lakes, rivers, and streams, and the groundwater that lies in aquifers under its surface, and the salt water that fills its oceans. We can also help to clean up pollution that already exists. And we can find ways to save water.
In this way, we can protect the water that is an essential part of our environment and help preserve the planet that is home to us all.